Hi.
What up, what up, what up, what up, what up?
I know. I feel like going like pew 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 pew.
Right. Every single time you do that, that's exactly what I want to do. That is the exact sound that I want to make, but I refrain. Because I'm like decorum. Decorum.
Right. Like, let us just try to hold it together and be dignified.
Let's be civilized for like 2 minutes, possibly.
Although we would be completely on theme with this book if we just decided to be off the chain. It would be so fitting.
Oh man, we have lots of thoughts. I'm just gonna like do our normal like 5 minutes of like how's life? How's everybody doing?
Yes, we will give y'all time to come in, get comfortable. I hope you brought a snack. Hope that you have an alcoholic beverage because this book did drive me to drink.
Oh my
A
god.
few times. A few times.
Not it drove me to drink.
It did. It did. It drove me to drink out of pure frustration.
Oh
And
my
just like,
gosh.
oh girl, we have a lot to talk about.
We apparently do.
I'm excited.
Like crap. I mean, that's great in terms of like conversation wise, but dang.
Yeah, I have a lot to say. A lot. I try not to read any Goodreads reviews. I read a few.
I read nothing.
I read 3 or 4, and I was happy to see a few reviews that kind of echoed how I felt, about the book. And I feel like my overall thoughts and opinions are still somewhat processing, but I think for me, this is a 3-star read for sure.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna say my rating in a second. I'm trying to think about it.
I do not need to think.
Oh my goodness.
3 stars.
Can I just say that in general, reading Black celebrities' autobiographies is something that I never thought I would be doing.
Really?
Really? Like before the book club, never read even one of them.
Oh.
So Michelle Obama was
that's
the
right.
first one I ever read.
That was our opener.
Yeah, so it's very interesting that like I'm on my 3rd one. And I have every intention of reading Viola Davis's and Cicely Tyson's.
Oh, Cicely's is so good.
Exactly.
So good.
So.
Like one of my all-time favorite books, period.
Exactly. So it's like, I can't believe I'm here. I never would have thought that I would be here, but
here we are.
Here we are. Like, wow, this is crazy.
I know. It's so funny, but the whole time I was listening to the second half of this book, all I could think about is how much more I enjoyed Mariah Carey's and Jessica Simpson's autobiography. I was just like, I wish I could go back there.
No, I wish I could go back. Stop. Okay, let me just start this intro. Hi, guys. Welcome to Black Prose Club, where Black lives, Black books, and Black authors have always mattered. Today, we are having our Q3 book discussion, and the book that we chose for this quarter is Will by Will Smith. I'm one of your hosts, Brittany, aka Melanin Eclectic.
And I am another one of your hosts, Oshale of Oshi Reads.
Woo! So I guess if you've never participated in a Black Prose Club discussion, sometimes we try to do without spoilers. Sometimes we do. As this is an autobiography, we are definitely using spoilers. So spoiler alert to anybody who hasn't read the book and does not want to be spoiled, but I need to talk about the things to describe my feelings about the things. So this will be spoiler heavy.
We have to, because I mean the whole book is about his life, so the whole book is a spoiler. So if you haven't read it yet, then we encourage you to pause this video right now, read the book. I highly recommend the audiobook, or maybe I don't. We'll discuss that in a bit.
I recommend the audiobook for multiple reasons.
Okay. And then come back to this video and listen to your heart's content. Or if you don't care about spoilers, or you're one of those people that knowing what happens in the book actually just makes you want to read it more, then you're more than welcome to continue.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, you said that your rating of the book was 3 stars.
Yes.
My rating of the book is about 3.5.
Okay.
And the reason that I'm saying this is just because I didn't have the best feelings
Hmm.
while reading the book doesn't mean that it was a bad book to me. Because
Okay.
it's an autobiography, like it's not like this person wrote a fictional story and it landed flat. Like this is his life.
That's very true. I think for me, the 3 star is because in the rating system, I believe 1 star is poor, 2 is fair, 3 is good, 4 is great, and 5 is excellent. So
Uh-huh.
for me, this was a good read. It wasn't great, it wasn't excellent. And my reasonings have more to do with how I feel about what was told versus the many things that were not told. And it's like obvious that many things were not told. And on one hand, that's okay because it's his life and he can choose to share what he wants. On the other hand, I think it's because of the manner and the way the things that were told were told. In
Mm.
the second half of the book, there was a certain lack of vulnerability, I feel, and there was a lot of showmanship, especially if you listen to the audiobook. And even the way the book was written, which I know that he didn't write it alone, he wrote it with someone.
Yeah.
And it just was very clear to me that he is definitely a better songwriter than he is a writer because he used so many words. And I
Yes.
guess like prose wise, I'm just not somebody that enjoys so many words when you could just use 1 or 2 words and it says the same thing. Um,
I get that.
but then I also felt like, well, he does talk about how he loves to hear his own voice and he talks all the time. So I guess it makes sense. It's true because it came across in the audiobook. I was like, oh my
It
God,
did.
stop talking.
It actually really did.
When he would go off on these long soliloquies and tangents about like life, like it was almost like he was trying to sound like he was writing his own version of The Alchemist, if anyone's ever read that book. And I just wanted to be like, sir, what is happening right now?
To me, it sounded like he was trying to prove to us that he was actually like healing.
But it was like, that phrase, thou dost protest too much. It's like, it just made me feel like he hasn't healed.
Yeah. I think that same. To me, it was like, okay, so I hope that like while writing this book and after that you're still in that intensive therapy that you were talking about because it's very clear that I think you missed some marks here.
It's not even that. There were a lot of things that troubled me in the second half of the book. The first thing was, like, we just said, the lack of vulnerability and the over talking and using too many words. The second thing was I'd already come to see him as an unreliable narrator. Um,
Mm.
the first time was when he talked about basically how he was like a master liar and manipulator in his youth, and how
Oh
he
yeah.
didn't he didn't think that that was an issue, and everyone around him was like, bruh. And he's just like, no, I'm just in my imagination. So that was also like, okay, so basically what you're telling me is I can take what you're writing here with a grain of salt, and a lot of these stories are over exaggerated. Got it. And then the second thing was when he realized that whole memory of him drowning wasn't real,
Yeah.
because his mom was like, Will, that never happened. And I'm like, so his fear of swimming was literally based off of something that he made up in his mind that he convinced himself happened that had never happened.
It's one of the reasons why I said I hope that he's actually continuing therapy because that is strong.
That threw me for a whole loop because then I started questioning like a lot of stuff in the book. I was like, okay, did you really burn her clothes on the lawn? Okay, were you really friends with gang members? Okay, well, this happened. What about this? What about this? And I don't know.
And
So
see
it's
what's
just like I couldn't figure out, like, it's sad when you're reading an autobiography and you can't believe what the person is saying.
what's funny?
Yes.
So the way that you were like, I can't trust any of it, I looked at it more like the way that he described his mom looking at it,
Okay.
where it was like, this
Trying to
sounds
figure out what was true.
this sounds a bit embellished.
Okay.
So what I believe to happen is actually this, and he just added a little extra because he really does like the sound of his own voice.
He really does.
Like, wow, it was
It's
nuts.
It was
Well,
insane. And it was like you could still feel like that, like wanting to please people. Like he talks in the second of the book, he
yes.
goes through this whole journey about how he, in my opinion, abused ayahuasca. Let's talk about that in a second.
Woo! Okay, wait, no. We got to go back. We got to start at his childhood and work our way up
Ugh,
to the book
so
because
much to say.
part two, like part his childhood was eye opening, but
Very.
part two, I was like, what? This some rich people shit right here.
His like his life just went off the rails, and he's like, I don't know who I am. Yeah, I'm still a traumatized little boy. Yeah, I've like completely disregarded every single thing my wife has ever wanted in her life and just ran over her and did what I wanted anyway. But it's fine. And I'm like,
Ayahuasca.
now I'm gonna take this like ancient herbal medicine and like this will heal me. And I'm like, what the actual fuck? Now I'm gonna do it 14 times, right? That's cool. I'm like, no,
And no
it's not
biggie.
okay.
That part sent me. But yes, so we're gonna go back. So how do I put this? I have always, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I've always revered Will Smith as one of those black actors that like is like the pinnacle of perfection. And after reading this book, I realized it was orchestrated to be that way.
Yes, his and you know what? That is what it is. That's why I gave it a 3-star book, because even the book feels very calculated and orchestrated.
Yes. And it's
There's
like he
there's no
basically told us,
rawness, no
I played
vulnerability.
y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I played y'all.
And he
But I
still won a
played y'all because of the trauma of my childhood.
and he still won an NAACP award for writing this book. Like, what?
Yeah,
But
it's
oh God.
it's it was on like that's the thing. Like I felt like part like the childhood part was so honest.
Yes.
And
Like
then
to
it
go
was
from that rawness to like once he became a movie star, everything started to go downhill once he became a movie star, right?
yes. And he even
Um,
recognized it as being a problem multiple times.
multiple times. But I feel like he still lacks self-awareness. Like even when he was talking about things and he was like, I know. Hindsight is 2020 and yeah, I said the wrong thing. What I should have said was this. I'm also like, as a listener of the book, I'm like, yo, you lack self-awareness in such a major way that you are literally telling me how much money your movies made in the box office in your heyday. Like, I can't just look this shit up on Wikipedia. Like, we know you were the biggest movie star in the world for about a
Oh
decade.
no, like
We
the
don't
amount
need
of
you to
time
tell
he
us
had to do
that.
an ego trip in this book was wild.
We don't need you to tell us that over and over and over. What I want to know is like what you were going through internally while you were making those films. I want to know about, I want you to show me your inner life.
I want to know how the heck you managed to keep 3 kids sane while you were doing all of this. Like I don't know. Okay, so how do I explain this? So I have a sense of like wow
Mm-hmm.
when I was reading the book, but it wasn't like a wow, this is amazing. It was wow, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because like though even the I can start basically from the way that he describes his parents.
Yes. Let's
And
talk about that.
from the moment, like it's like from that point on, like everything was a whoa because he talks about his mother in a way of, unfortunately, in a way that a lot of Black men describe Black women who go through things they shouldn't have to go through. Like he described her in a way of like, I knew she'd persevere type thing.
You mean the strong Black woman stereotype?
Yes, he really puts the strong Black woman stereotype on a lot of women in his life,
Yeah.
but he doesn't actually take them into consideration.
No, he does not.
And then the men that present themselves in his life, from his father, even to the trainer that he had from Ali, to James Avery, to Quincy Jones.
Can we also just say that trainer was psychotic? But that's
Yes,
okay.
but like anytime he like every man had a slight relationship to his father, who, let's be very clear, it's the way that he, how do I put this? It's the way that he equated putting food on the table to being this amazing man.
Well, yeah, like he
But
did not
also like
have. a
He
good
beat my mother's ass regularly.
he did not have a good male role model.
He did not.
And he even talks about how his father's abuse and brutality affected each of them differently. And he always speaks about his younger brother, Harry, and how Harry was courageous and defiant. And Harry was the one that moved in with Mom when the parents had separated the first time. And Harry was the brave one. And Harry was the one that the father stopped beating because he realized he couldn't break him. So it's like he has this jealousy
Coward complex.
of Harry's strength, but it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like he doesn't realize that him and Harry are not the same, and he is like the sensitive creative artist one, and that's okay. And it's like he is literally sex what is the right word?
Yeah, because
um
it's not sexist.
he is it's not misogynistic, it's the male version of misogyny to himself. Like he doesn't want to just acknowledge that gender roles and kind of like how we push masculinity and femininity in the Black community, and how like
Mm-hmm.
masculinity looks like this and femininity looks like that. And because he was the more sensitive one, the one who was more creative, more imaginative, he was wearing cowboy boots because he liked them. Like the whole incident with the bike where all the kids on the block got that one specific bike, and he thought that the bike that looked like a motorcycle was cooler, even though he got made fun of. Like all of these things, it's like he went against the traditional gender role of masculinity.
Yes.
And then his dad was like this hyper masculinity that was actually very dangerous and harmful. And so he did not have the right role model, because he didn't have the type of father that saw his sensitivity as a strength or his creativity as well, until he made millions of dollars off of it. But you know what I mean? Like so it's
Yes.
almost like he villainizes himself for being soft in a way, like how we look at more softer feminine traits as bad in men and stuff like that. He villainizes himself and he says that it's cowardice. It wasn't cowardice. He just doesn't have the same personality as his brother, and that's fine.
Yeah, like it was wild. Like he gave the opportunity to describe his siblings and
Yes.
how it was okay for each one of them to respond the way that they responded to their father's abuse. But
Yes.
he felt obligated that he needed to do something because he was the oldest son.
Yes. He
And
kept
it was just
mentioning that.
like, holy crap. Yeah, read, love, listen. That's right. He had a lot of internalized misogyny.
That's what I'm trying to say.
And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yes.
I want it, at that point, it was like, oh my gosh, like I wish that somebody had been in his life to tell him that it was okay to not want to fight, to be afraid,
Mm-hmm.
because this was the man that was supposed to be protecting you and taking care of you. And on one second he was, and then the next second you were fearing for your life. Like that wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
normal situation. There was no correct answer or correct way to respond
No.
to being brutal, to being abused. And
No.
it's the fact that like he went through the whole book and never ever said that.
That's what I'm saying. Like he lacks self-awareness. He clearly has not healed from that completely, because even through it all, he still held his father to this high pedestal.
Yeah.
And
And it's like,
it
we never talked about it. Why didn't you?
because that's the Black family thing. You just brush things under the rug and you move on. You pretend like everything's fine.
Yeah.
You have whole families that like keep pedophiles in the family and just brush things under the rug and are like it's fine.
But also
So
it's unfortunately, because I feel like it's a very abundant generational curse where it's like, yeah, he didn't physically abuse his family, but his drive for perfection, using the idioms and stuff that even his dad used,
it created an abusive environment.
it is still an abusive environment.
Yes.
And because it's like striving for that level of perfection is not healthy. And
No.
then like it's like I don't fault him, because I know that that's something that's something that travels through through the Black families, because there was that level of perfectionism is something we strive for, because we're taught to always like do the best,
You
do
have
the
to
most,
work
be the best.
Yeah, you have to work 10 times harder and you have to
And
be
he associated
perfect.
that with like his worthiness as a person.
He did. And you know what's interesting? I'm having this revelation now and like linking it all together. His grandma, Gigi, called him lover boy, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like she actually saw him for who he was. He was the lover. Like he was obsessed with love from all the women in his life and his dad,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. But he was, he was the softer one. He felt things more deeply. He was more emotional and things like that. And it's when he turned against his own nature that his life crumbled, even though he was on the highest peak of success. Because he went through this whole transformation after Ali of becoming like extremely hyper masculine stereotype, like very rigid, very regimented. He called it discipline. It sounds scary as fuck. It sounds like his dad. He basically became his dad in the
It's
in the
thank you.
military.
I was like that. The moment that he said that the trainer reminded him of his military father, I was like, oh God.
But
But
it's
you know
like
what's also sad?
what?
All the movies that he listed, I loved watching him in all of those movies. But the fact that I now understand that that's what he was doing in the background, it's like, wow, like we helped fuel his delusion that he was doing something right.
Well, I mean, he was doing something right in his work life. The problem was bringing it to his personal life. But I think what the book showed us is that he had no separation between his personal life and his work life. They
He
were
didn't.
all one and the same. He didn't look at acting, and this is something I still think that is a problem. And I hope that he's resolved this through therapy. Acting is a job. It's not who you are, Will Smith. Like
I mean, I really
you
hope he's starting to find that out because
like
woo.
you go to work and then you go home to your family. Like you don't need to bring what works in the box office for you and what works on, when you go on these international tours and what works on the red carpet and in interviews and on the set. You do not need to bring that to your personal life. You need to have a separation. Like, this is my job and these are the things that I do to make my job easier, to make me excel in my profession, the discipline and all that militaristic shit. Okay, that's great. But then to bring that into your family life, it's like he had no separation of church and state. And it caused so many issues. And he was like like I was saying earlier, he was going against his own nature because by nature, he is like the lover boy, like his grandma said. But he
Yeah.
completely turned against that, became hard, didn't even care about how people felt, and then came up with some psychobabble bullshit reason about why feelings didn't matter. Remember that whole part in the book?
Oh my gosh, yes. And it was just like it was like he kept saying he could see things crumbling like in his personal life and he had to fix it. And his responses to fixing it was making them work harder.
Yes, it was making them work harder, or it was in feeding his own ego by proving to the people around them that he was this great father and he was this great husband, but not actually like being a great father and a great husband to them, but just putting on a show to feed his ego. And so everybody around the family, like how he talks about when Oprah invited the
Oh
whole
my gosh.
family
And he
on
was
his
like, I
show.
made it. I finally made it. I had the house with the name. I had a beautiful wife, fantastic kids. We were the epitome of a blended family. I was like, bro, were you?
And for me, that's where the book started to go off the rails, because what I wanted to know was what was going on underneath that. What I wanted him to come clean about and be vulnerable about is the fights that him and Jada was having, how it was crumbling, what was going on with
Okay.
Jaden, what was going on with Willow. He alluded to Trey not liking him for a while, never spoke on it, never went into detail. And I
Here's
was just
my
like, what the fuck?
On one hand, yes, I did want to know that, but also I do believe that there might be a level of like maybe because Trey seems more reserved and closed off in terms of like the fame world. Maybe he didn't want his dad putting all of their stuff like that out there.
That's very true. He may have just like
Because
requested that he not put that in the book.
yeah, because I feel like I have no doubt Will loves his kids, and I do believe that he like gave them input to like things that were told. Um,
Well, then
because
if he couldn't talk about them, he could talk about himself and how he felt. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like there was this weird wall up once we got past a certain point in the book where everything felt very performative.
yeah.
And it's like I couldn't really feel his heart. Like, he would talk about things and it wasn't connecting with me because it felt, like I said, just very staged and very calculated, the way he was saying things and doing things. And I was just like, I don't really understand why you are talking to me right now about how you called up your ex-girlfriend's husband and went to like Trinidad. Like, what is going on? Like, it's like I understood what he was trying to say, but it wasn't
I
giving
think
what he
that
thought it was giving. Like it just wasn't.
it's like when it came down to admitting that his plan had failed, he felt like that was enough. Like to actually go into detail and discuss each part of it was too much for him because we don't know how him and Jada finally made up. We don't know after when Jaden requested to be an emancipated minor, we don't know like what that did to the family. Willow being the slightly spirited being that she apparently is,
I love
like
Willow. She was like,
yeah,
"I'm done,
but to
Daddy."
say I can't tell you how
And
much I love like I can't
and
tell you how much more I was like, oh my God, Willow. But
and then
also
he's all
like
like, "No, you're not done." And she's like, "Watch this," and shakes her hair off.
listen, the way that like the second part was really about his family, but like he didn't give us much about what he was doing to save his family
Nothing at all.
outside of work. I felt like
Nothing.
that was actually more telling than him going through and breaking down everything for each child or his wife or even his ex-wife and how they even became like a better family. The fact that there was a privacy level there, I truly believe one, there is a level of shame attached to that failure that he's still not able to fully admit out loud, and therefore the story cannot be told.
Mm.
I also believe that, again, there is a level of privacy in terms of the other people involved because these are their children. And if there's one thing that I did figure out, all three of them, Will, Jada, and Cherie, was about them kids.
Yes, very
And
much so.
so I do believe that there is an aspect of that because um like again, I'm trying to think like you don't hear about Trey. Only thing I've ever heard about Trey is that he played football. It's the only thing I've ever heard about Trey.
Yeah.
Ever. You know, the only things we've ever heard about Jaden and Willow, their music, Jaden's acting.
Yeah.
That's it. Like you don't hear about their personal lives. And I kind of and like at first I was like, man, I don't like this. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, I actually prefer this because it's even though he's involved in the story of what happened to them, it still happened to them because of what he did to them. And until he's ready to truly admit and accept that he did that to them, like
Mm.
it wasn't a like cataclysm of events, it was literally like you did this to your people, we're never going to hear that story.
That's
And
true.
I don't think that's something that we're ever going to hear because that requires a level of vulnerability and understanding that drugs cannot give you.
Right. 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 That's true.
So I'm okay with not hearing about the kids. The only thing okay, let me react. The only thing I'm kind of mad about, I just need to say this. I will no longer bag on Jada Pinkett Smith.
Well, I don't see how the book makes her look bad at all. The book just makes her look like she's living with somebody who is extremely selfish, extremely to the 10th power. And it's not like he doesn't love her and he doesn't love his kids. Obviously he does, but he said it himself. He puts himself first and he only cares about his dreams and
Oh
what
my god,
he
can we talk about that therapy scene?
Oh, okay. So the part where I guess they're in couples therapy and they each have to write down their priorities, and it's a pretty short list, and they have to order them from most important to least, I suppose. And Jada puts herself last on her list, and first on her list is the kids, with Will, following closely after. And on Will's list, he puts himself as number one. Then after that, he puts Jada, and then the kids. And he tried to explain it as like, oh, well, you have to put on your oxygen mask first if the plane is like, crashing before you can help others. And oh, if you're not well, then no one else is well. And if your mental health and your physical health aren't great, then everyone else suffers. And I understood where he was coming from, but then he turned around after that and said, well, when you're creative and you're a dreamer, your dream comes first before everything else. And I was like,
But this is my
sir,
thing. He
sir,
also identified Jada as a dreamer, and Jada gave up her dreams for her
all
babies.
her dreams, all her dreams. Like, and it's like the lack of self-awareness and the lack of gratitude for the fact that this woman literally, she told you, like, when you called her up and you said, I'm trying to remember when this part was. I think it's like when he called her up and said that he was going to try again with Cherie or something like that. It was either that time, or it was a
Oh,
time when for some reason they like weren't together yet quite yet, and she was just going to live a simple life. Oh yeah, she had left Hollywood. This was before he.
that was the call. That was the call.
Yes, she had left
Oh, no,
Hollywood.
no, no.
She
I'm sorry. When Sheree gave him the divorce
divorce
papers,
papers. Yes. Okay.
he
She
called up
had.
Jada, and Jada had already left LA,
Yes.
went for her own little spot, was gonna be
Yes.
there by herself and
Yes.
relax.
She
And the
was
fact that he
like,
kept describing Jada as like reserved, wanting to not be in the spotlight, wanting to just be with her family and her loved ones, he kept describing her in this way where it was like, so you already know this is not how Jada gets down.
no.
But you
No.
insist that Jada is supposed to just be ready to do what you want to do because you're a dreamer. But then you also said Jada is a creative and Jada is so this and so that. But like, you tell us this, and then in the next sentence, like, I ignored everything that Jada is because
Yes.
I have a mission and she's supposed to be on board for my mission.
And there was just a lack of gratitude to Jada for giving up her dreams and sacrificing. Nowhere in like their life did he accede to her in any way. Like when he wanted to buy that big ass mansion because of some childhood obsession with what's the name of that show?
Dallas.
Dallas. She's like, I don't want to do this. Well, like this is too big. Like I don't.
Like
And
there was never a compromise.
and here's the thing, she's the one that's going to have to upkeep that house when you're traveling the world filming movies and shit. So really the burden falls to her, and he just overrides her. Like, and then she didn't want to have a wedding, he overrode her there. Like, oh, I was just like, oh
I
my
think the
god.
only thing that she got to do that she wanted very briefly was what, La Lobo? La Loba?
Yes.
That was it.
That was it.
And even that, he pushed back slightly on it, remember?
Yeah, he did. He was like, are you sure you don't want to do an R&B? And she's just like, no, this is what I want to do. And then he couldn't even sacrifice for her to go on tour. He was like, oh, well, you know.
Well, okay, so the tour part, I knew she wasn't going on tour because it coincided with the filming of Jaden's first
The Pursuit
movie.
of Happiness, yes.
So she wasn't, like, from a mom standpoint, she had, I think she's already talked about that. Like, she was not going to miss Jaden's like first big thing. But like, I'm like, Jada gets so much shit.
Mm-hmm.
And because Will has been so good at presenting Will, not Willard.
Yes.
It's so easy to villainize her. And then you listen to this book and it's so bad that you get to the point of her 40th birthday and you just knew she wasn't going to like it.
That was wild what he did, because he never, okay. So for as much as they talked about how they're like soulmates and best friends and they talk for hours, do they really talk for hours? Because it sounds like he didn't ask her at all what she wanted for her birthday. He just planned this elaborate.
I believe he did ask her. I believe he did. I truly believe that he did, and still did what he wanted. Because every single time he said he was going to talk to wife and she said no, he still did what he wanted to do.
That's true. That's true. Like, he did that. Like, that whole birthday thing to me was so,
it was ick.
Was so performative. He's like, and then we traveled and we found her ancestors and we found the slave owners themselves, and we found
you could just hear everybody in the crowd talking about, oh, I want Will to do mine. Like, everything, I was just like, oh, this is bad.
But
here's
the problem. Here's the problem. When you listen to the audiobook, there's no remorse in his voice. Like, he's literally telling the story in such like a jovial, like, oh my god, and this was great, and I did this and I did this. And the part that like really gave me the ick was he was like, when he found the slave owners or whatever, and he was like, they opened the door, and can you imagine, there's Will Smith and there's
Karate Kid,
and there's
Karate Kid's
and
uncle.
I'm just like, are you serious, Will? Are you serious? Like, are you really serious right now? And he was just like, yeah, that was the highlight of their lives. Like, he doesn't say that, but he kind of says that by not saying that.
Yeah, there is a lot of ego. And I that's why I said, like, I actually am glad that I listened to it on audiobook, because you can tell the parts that he sounds remorseful on. And that was not one of the moments where he sounded remorseful at all.
There is definitely a problem when you are married to somebody that you call your soulmate, but you are sadder talking about how you never spent time with Nelson Mandela before he passed than you are talking about any of the times that you disregarded her feelings and did not put her as a priority in your relationship. Like, you are literally sadder about not spending time with a literal stranger and a man that you only talked with for a few hours here and there throughout the years. You are sadder about that than you are about your life partner and not prioritizing her wants and needs. Like, that is disturbing. I'm just like, do you not
It was
see
because
how?
his whole time, if you look at all of the like, if you look at the way that he viewed his parents' relationship, he even described his mom as the one who supported Daddy-O for his business.
That's true. He did.
And so he always saw it as like, we're a team, but this team all strives towards the goals of what I want.
Mm.
And so, like, even because, again, we can go back to his kids, because, again, Willow is the OG of this book.
She really is. The part where she's like, it's just so sad, so sad. And she's like stroking his beard, and like Jada's just sitting there. She's like,
Eating Haagen-Dazs.
Like, she must have been like, what, like maybe 11 or so. And then she's just like, Daddy wants this family and it's not us, you know? It's so weird.
And I'm like, your 11-year-old daughter sees that you're performative.
Like, and she's just like, it's just so sad. And like, Jada looks away. Will's shook.
Because he just got read by an 11-year-old with Haagen-Dazs dripping down her arms.
And I'm just like, wow. I mean, it really made me think, like, it must have been so hard growing up with a father like Will Smith. It must have been really, really difficult, because on one hand, I'm sure he loves you and he gives you the world, like how he was talking about how he was disregarding Sheree's parenting requests for Trey when Trey was with him, because he was like, well, I can just take him to the video game developers and he can learn about coding, and he doesn't.
I shouldn't have to tell him to go to bed at a certain time. He'll learn when he wakes up in the morning tired. Sir, what?
So it's like, but that also shows like how he's willing to go above and beyond for his kids, and he wants them to do whatever.
I don't think he was a terrible father. I just think that there are, because of his upbringing with Daddy-O, his idea of what it meant to father his kids were honestly from how a lot of Black men think. They don't think that they need to nurture their children from an emotional standpoint. They think that they just need to ensure that they're going to have a good life, because obviously if they have a good life and they work hard, then that's the sign that everything's okay.
Yes.
And as Willow pointed out when she asked him, do my feelings not matter? And then he basically told her, no, they don't.
He did.
And then her response was to literally cut all her hair off.
Yes. And how old was she? She was like, what, 7 years old?
With my hair, she was like 11? 9. She was 10 or 11.
Yeah.
So it's like, there were multiple, like, his family was crying out for him in an emotional way, and he had never been nurtured emotionally and could not respond appropriately. This is why I hope he's still in therapy, because woo!
What I do find interesting, though, is the way he viewed the women in his life. Like, he was so desperate for love from women, to the point where even in his whole ayahuasca, however you pronounce it, the first, I don't know what to call it, journey, trip, ceremony, and how there was that woman there. And I guess that woman to him is like the representation of like God.
No, remember, like, the representation, like, it was revealed that the representation was like, this was his inner being, and his inner being was female, a beautiful female.
Oh, I took it as like, it was like this like God-like being that was there with him. That was like,
oh no, that's what he, like, she, like, the being told him, like I'm you, like, this is your inner you.
I thought she was saying the place was him, because he was like, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been. Where am I? And she was like, well, this is you.
Oh, well, I assume that, like, because it was like like, I assume she was a part of him too. Either way, I just really want him to get a real therapist and stop doing drugs.
Well, it's like, I don't even look at it as drugs. I think it's like this very sacred thing that Native people do in that part of the world. And it shouldn't be abused, and it shouldn't be used as, you know, some rich person's way to enlightenment or something like that.
That's my problem with it. Like, it's like the practice of it is not the problem. My problem with Will is Will started. Did Will do therapy before or after this?
I believe because he did therapy with that lady. Remember, I can't remember her name, but
Oh
she
yeah,
had
he
like,
started with her and then it went to that.
mhm.
And I'm like, okay, but like, did you continue actual therapy to start breaking down some of your barriers? Because it just feels like you did it for a little bit, found what you thought was a quicker solution, and went with that instead. And because you have like an immense amount of money, you did that instead.
Well, it almost feels like Will Smith has not known who he is since Magicker disappeared.
Woo! Shoot. I forgot all about Magicker.
Yeah, like Magicker, his imaginary friend when he was like what, 4 years old, 5, 6, something like
His
that.
imaginary courageous friend.
But Magicker was really the other Will. Magicker was the Will that Will wanted to be, right?
Yeah.
Magicker was the brave one. He was the dynamic, more interesting one, according to him. So it's almost like he split his consciousness into two.
Yes.
And, the physical him was like the him that he hated for being cowardly, for not being able to protect his mother. And then the imaginary him, Magicker, was who he really wanted to be. And then the day that Magicker disappeared was the day that he felt, I guess, solidified his cowardness, I suppose.
Yes. I think that's a good description of it. What do I say? Again, a lot of times in the book that I was reading, I was like, wow, because
I
I
can't
kept
bomb the
reading the
book.
I kept reading the book hoping he was going to have this major epiphany moment,
He never did.
and there were never any major epiphany moments. There were a lot of regrets that were discussed, but there were no like epiphany moments. Like I was waiting, like for example, when the 40th birthday thing came around and him and Jada like flipped out finally, and Willow freaked the fuck out as she should,
Poor
because if I
Willow.
heard my parents arguing like that, I too would freak out. And they decided that they were going to try to find their own happiness. I was like, this is actually something that I think is very important to do, because I feel like you can't be happy in a relationship if you're not happy with yourself. My question was, why is it when you went to Trinidad, one of your first dark thoughts was, what if a woman walks in?
That was kind of weird.
I was like, bro, what? Like,
But
you're
here's the
what?
thing. There is this side of Will that he's been like repressing, because that whole section. Well, first I want to say that I'm going to finish my earlier thought, and I'm going to bounce back to this with that woman. My earlier thought is like, I don't think Will's known who he is for a very, very long time, for the majority of his life.
Agreed.
And as someone who went to acting school and who used to be an actor, you have to have a very strong sense of self to be an actor. And unfortunately, most Hollywood stars do not. That's why they descend into drugs. That's why they descend into like violent behavior. That's why they descend into alcoholism. That's why a lot of them are narcissistic and seem very shallow and have no sense of self, because in order to do the acting job, you're basically having to become different people and still be able to return back to yourself.
Which he had trouble with from his very first movie.
Right. Like the fact that he lost himself in a character, couldn't find his way back. And that was how his first marriage crashed and burned, because he literally became a different person. That is troubling. And that shows that he doesn't have a strong core of self, because he got so easily lost in a different self. And then he takes on a job for a living where he's just different people all the time. That's got to be really difficult when you don't really know who you are to begin with, because you don't really have a place to return to. And then who you think you are is just really you wanting other people to love you and
Yep.
and laugh and clap and cheer you on and think you're the greatest thing ever. But that's not a personality trait. Like
That's a survival tactic
that's a
of
survival
abuse.
tactic. So I think, that's the first thing I wanted to say. And then the thing with the women, so the part where him and Jada decide to go their separate ways, and he has that weird like thought, like, what if a woman walks in here, she does this, and even back to the point where with that Austrian therapist, like whatever she was, and I think she was like a psychologist, and he talks about wanting a harem, and that was like the first thing he said.
Yeah.
There is this weird undercurrent in the book that he doesn't talk about, but obviously if you're like familiar with his life and stuff, you kind of fill in the blanks of like Will Smith and Jada have an open relationship. At some
Yeah.
point, they decided to have an open relationship.
Because he talks about the traditional marriage not working for them. He says that.
Well, she said from the beginning she didn't want it. She didn't
Which,
want
again, all of her stuff was ignored.
Yeah, which it seems like he tried to force it upon her for a while. So essentially, they decided to have an open marriage. And like, you can tell that he's having relationships with other women without him saying that he's having relationships with other women, because whenever he brings up another woman, he makes it a point to mention several times after he said their name that, oh, we never slept together. We never
Exactly.
kissed.
It was like every single time there was another woman and she was like, we never actually did anything. We're just good friends. Okay, sir, we didn't ask, but I mean, go off.
Like, he kept specifically pressing that point, but then he would have weird moments of wanting a harem. So if you want a harem, that doesn't that mean that you have some experience of dealing with a bunch of, like, why was that the first thing you said? And then why is the first thing you think of when you are literally in the middle of nowhere, in the sense that like you're in a different country on an island, the nearest airport is 90 minutes away, no one knows where you are, the first thing that you think about is some strange woman walking in seductively. Like, there are just so many threads, and it's like the elephant in the room that's not being discussed.
Right. It's like, on one hand, again, if you and Jada have decided that an open marriage is what you want, good for you. I really hope that that works. But like,
don't tiptoe around it in this book, because we're all
right.
Like,
because
okay.
Also, like, Jada been out here painted as like this evil woman.
Yes.
For doing what you've been doing. She just didn't get an NDA signed properly for one dude and like messed it up for her.
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah,
that part really bothered me, because the whole time I was like, this must be the time when she started messing around with August, and he was caught in several like Instagram celebrity
If you go
blogs.
on his YouTube channel during this phase when he was like traveling around the world, there was always one specific chick that was there.
Yes, there was.
We're not dumb.
Yeah, and he would post a photo, and she would post a photo being in the same location. Like, sir.
It's like, again, signing an NDA is great. That's cool, but I felt okay. I think I finally figured it out.
Okay, before you say that, that only added to my sense of disconnect and my sense of him being performative and not vulnerable. But
I look at it from the sense of, I'm trying to put this correctly. He could only go into detail what his idea of perfection was. Anything that deviated from his idea of perfection, we got barely any details.
That is so true.
So we knew he was planning this super big love, this outward showcase of love, because from the beginning he's already said he wants to be Prince Charming in somebody's fairy tale.
Which is
so that's why we got the full breakdown of every little thing that he did for her birthday.
Yes.
It's why when she didn't react how he felt she should have reacted, he was able to describe that. But what he wasn't able to describe is how much he failed her.
Yeah. And I found it very odd that after he was like watching her face and she didn't react how he wanted her to, and then they're in the room and she's just quiet and he's quiet, any other person would be like frantically trying to figure out what was wrong. I thought you liked it. Like you didn't like it. Like, what part didn't you like? Like, are you okay? Is everything all right? Was it seeing your grandmother again? Did I go too far? Like any other?
Nope, not with him.
And he just stared at her and he was like,
because it was, how dare you didn't appreciate everything I did for you.
That was like, in that moment, my heart broke for Jada, and I was just like, Jada, you can leave. You don't have to stay with him.
Imagine, like, he talking about how she had this huge relationship with her grandma. It's these tapes that none of her family members or her have heard.
And the first time she hears it is at a big party.
The first time she hears it is at the end of a video that you did that was clearly an ego trip for you. And then right after that, the stage goes up and Mary J. Blige performs. Sir, what? If Gigi had sent you a final message that you didn't know about, where would you have heard that message from Gigi?
Right.
Because it was just like, so there was no, like, again, there was this level of the world is going to know that I love my wife, but there was no, my wife is going to know that I love her.
Ooh, that's good. Like, it just felt like his whole life, starting from when Benny, no, not Benny Medina, although yeah, Benny Medina, when what's his name?
Which one?
Not Benny Medina, the other guy. I don't know why I'm blanking
Quincy?
on his name. Thank you. When Quincy Jones took a liking to his face, right? And like paved his way into success with a simple audition at a party and then forced everyone to hire him for the show. It seems like ever since that serendipitous moment, it became the Will Smith show, and you either got on board
Yep.
or you didn't. Like, either you're riding with me and this is what we're doing and this is how things are, or you're gone. And oh, this is for your own good. It doesn't matter how you feel or what you think. We're doing it this way because it's best for you. Like, what?
Like the way he forced Jazzy Jeff and JL to move.
Yeah. Like, he didn't even think to himself, like, maybe they're not ready and that's okay. And whenever they're ready, they know they can come to me and I'll give them an
Honestly,
opportunity.
though, like, to describe Jazzy Jeff the way that he did and then tried to force him to move to LA made no sense at all. This man was having full-blown panic attacks from getting on a tour bus to go tour.
Yeah, it sounded like he had social anxiety just based off of how isolated he was when he grew up.
Like, oh, my heart goes out to him because what? I don't know. It's one thing to have ambition and it's one thing to have drive, but to step on everyone that you love's head to get there has got to be a wild experience.
And he was literally just like, well, I need them with me and I want them with me and this will be good for them. So I will manipulate the situation to my liking.
I made sure everybody was taken care of. I even made sure that on the holidays that everybody had an all expense paid trip so I could make sure that I could have meetings with them during the holiday. Sir, what? That is controlling.
That was crazy. And he was just like, yeah, I mean, other people use the holidays to rest and relax and eat too much. Not me. I use the holidays to become better. Come back. I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are?
Right. I was like, Will, sir, I don't know if you know this. And then his crack about people with good work-life balance. Like, sir, I don't know if you know this, but nothing that you're talking about with such an enthusiasm and such an ego trip is healthy. What you are just describing right now is bad. All of it is bad. All of it is bad.
It's like his work was his life and his life was his work. There was no separation whatsoever. And for some strange reason, he felt that made him a better person. Like how he was comparing himself to like Tom Cruise and all these other stars. And he was like, well, I'm doing this and I studied this and I'm doing this. And on one hand, that was very admirable to see how methodical he was about, being the best and coming out with the best outcomes and having the biggest opening weekends and stuff like that, not only domestically, but internationally. Like, it was very impressive to see how, basically like he made up a whole battle plan and executed it.
I mean, JL did it too, but like he even talked about how like JL didn't want to like just go balls to the wall. And it's like, if he had done it how JL did it, I don't think we would have this book.
No, we would not. We would not. So it's like, on one hand, I'm admiring his drive and his like level of commitment to his dreams. But on the other hand, I'm like, what's missing from this book is the heart of the Smith family. I wanted to hear about like,
book is the heart of Will Smith. I'm serious, because like anything that required him to have to offer true vulnerability outside of admitting that he felt like he was a coward,
outside of his childhood, outside, like past the age of 20 in this book, we just get a Will Smith that's very calculated. And like, we're saying all this, like if you're not familiar with the book club or you're listening to this for the first time, you haven't read the book, we're saying all this and we still like Will Smith. Like, I still like him.
That's the thing. Yes, I still like him, but like this insight to him is alarming.
It explains a lot. Like, Brittany and I were talking about this before this live about how we totally understand the incident that happened at the Oscars early this year where I'm not going to say assault, sorry for you sensitive people, but where I'm sorry, I'm not. Where he slapped Chris. I'm sorry. I just feel like we're a very hypocritical society because we watch movies every day where people get slapped.
For
We have
less.
we have seen people get slapped. Some of us have
For
slapped
less.
people. Some of us have been slapped. I'm
For less.
sorry. I'm sorry, honey. A slap ain't gonna kill you. But anyway, the incident at the Oscars, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it happens. Where he slapped Chris Rock is so understandable now
Understandable.
because it's like that place where he was finally like, I'm not going to be a coward about this. And it was also that place where he doesn't know how to differentiate himself from the characters that he played. And he had just finished playing a character of this like extremely protective father.
Oh my gosh.
Remember? Like he doesn't know how
That's
to
what he
break.
was there for.
He doesn't know how to break character. So it's like it takes him a long time to get out of
It
those
does take him
characters.
a while to wind back down out of character. Girl, I forgot all about that.
Yes. So it's
But
like the
also Chris Rock still
intersection.
deserved it.
Yeah. Oh, Chris Rock 100% deserved it. And you can argue with your mama. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I was gonna say that's not up for debate for me.
it's not. It's not. And now after Chris Rock made his comments that he just made recently, um, wait, were you the one? You were the one who told me about
Yes.
this.
Now they're all mad at him.
So I could give two fucks about Chris Rock.
Yeah,
never liked
never
him.
will.
Don't give a fuck. But anyway, I say all that to say the intersection of him like not being able to break character of the overprotective father with the intersection of him feeling like a coward his whole life, not being able to protect his mom, not being able to protect I don't know who else. I guess the women in his life
The
in
little
general.
girl as she was going into the pedophile's house.
Yes, like there's so many instances.
There's so many instances.
So it's like the intersection of those two huge life traumas. Well, the acting part is not a trauma, but
and then attached to her being publicly humiliated.
Yes, that is like the perfect storm. That's the perfect storm. So I was like, of course he walked up there and snapped the shit out of him. He was like, oh, and remember, for the first half of his career, he was always being called soft.
Also that.
And
like you can tell therapy is like you can tell he needs more therapy because like all of the stories that we heard, Chris just getting slapped once is shocking.
It's shocking. I'm also thinking about the fact that for a lot of the second half of the book, he kept talking about how I've been perfect. I've been perfect my whole career. I've never had a scandal. Like and I'm like, that had to crack.
It did.
I had to crack at some point.
Because remember the part where he like it was the guy that came in with the camera, didn't even ask to record him, just started trying to record him.
Yes.
And he had to tell the guy no. And he felt so terrible just asking the guy to respect his boundaries.
He had like an emotional breakdown.
Yeah. It's like all of this makes sense.
Oh my God, I just realized something.
He was cracking already.
That, and I just realized something huge. So remember how one of the huge criticisms of the whole slap incident is that he was laughing moments before, like the camera, like there's this whole...
Oh my God, yes!
Remember how he says in the book, how he responds to anxiety and trauma and sadness? Because remember when he was in Trinidad and Tobago and he was all alone in that room in the basement and he started giggling and then he started laughing and then he literally had a breakdown?
Yep. His trauma laughter is very apparent as well.
So it's like the intersection of like him always wanting to people please, him knowing he's on TV and he has to portray this perfect image, and that being his response to like anxiety and being in uncomfortable situations. Because everyone was like, well, he was laughing at the joke. It was totally...
he was laughing because he was conflicted between ruining his image and slapping the fuck out of Chris, he was either going to protect his image and further prove to himself that he's a coward, or he's going to go on that stage and stand up for his wife, even though she didn't expect that because, wow.
But that's their pattern in their marriage. He continually does things for her that she didn't ask for and ignores the things that she does.
Man, listen, this is why I said I'm not mad at the book. I felt like the book was far more insightful than I initially realized.
Yeah,
because even without him trying, he gave us insight to like how broken of a man he is.
Extremely broken. I was like, damn, Will Smith is basically like one of those rag dolls that's like cobbled together from different fabrics that your grandma found in the basement. Like,
yeah.
Holy shit. He
Like
needs
that
help.
blanket will keep you warm, but that blanket is made up of a bunch of different pieces that were strung together in hopes of staying together to keep you warm.
And
Like
now I just hope that he really finds out who he is, because I feel like he still doesn't know.
he's like 50, what, 2 or 3 now, but I don't know. I just, again, I want him to find the happiness of being the individual that is Willard Smith the second,
Ooh, the full name. You called out the government.
because Will Smith is an actor. He is going to
Yes.
continue to be the actor. He is going to give the perfection show. He's going to give us what he feels will make the most success. He has
Yes.
already said that in his book multiple times. So I hope that he chooses to further find himself so that he can not only be a better person and stand and show up for himself, but also show up for his family like he's supposed to.
Yes. Now, can we just talk about the fact how the whole issue started when he did the Fresh Prince of Bel Air and decided to name his character himself, again solidifying the fact that he cannot separate
But
himself
wasn't that at the advice of
of someone
another
else.
actor?
It was. And but the thing is, he was so young and so naive. Like, any actor that's like actually studied acting, no offense, Will, you're very talented, but any actor that's actually like been to acting school, I mean, I'm sure he studied it now, but you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
studied it before that point, before you actually get a job. He will know that that's like a big no-no. You don't do that.
Hmm. I don't know. Like, I was like, obviously, I'm not an actor or never been to school or anything. So, like, when that advice was given, I was like, maybe that does make sense, because how many celebrities are called by the names of like their most famous characters now?
But here's the problem. I believe that that person has not had an ulterior motive and did it um out of just basically just did it out of wanting the show to be something, because Will Smith was already a name in hip hop. And so
Yeah.
it kind of brought something to the show, because it's like, oh, well, we have Will Smith.
Because, like, I don't know, Lady Ace, was it Quincy or was it Carlton? And I call him Carlton because I know his name is
Alfonso,
Alfonso. But, like, see how I just automatically called him Carlton? Like, I don't remember who gave him that advice, but I remember it being a point in the book, and I'm like, this, but this advice was given before he got his first role as Paul.
yes, it was.
So I don't know.
And like, method acting is not for everyone. In fact, like, the reason that, may he rest in peace, Heath Ledger passed away was because of method acting. Like, method acting is not for everyone. Like, and that's what he did
Yeah.
when he became Paul. Like, method acting literally requires you to have a very, very strong sense of self. Like, I remember Christian Bale told this story, and Christian Bale, I love him. He is an amazing actor, and he's also somebody that actually has a really good relationship with his wife and his family, and they stay out of the Hollywood spotlight as much as possible.
I didn't even know he had a wife and family. So yeah.
Exactly. But he's a method actor, and he even talked about one role in particular where he like literally went and like spent like weeks in jail or something, because he had to play somebody that was like imprisoned.
Oh, whoa.
And he talks about when he returned home, his wife refused to even sleep in the bed with him because he still was that character for a while. Like, after the movie wrapped and he came home, she slept in the guest bedroom because she was just like, you're like, yeah, this ain't my husband. And it took him a while to like shake it off and like come back to himself. And his wife was just like sleeping in a separate room because she was so freaked out.
I mean, again, I think that makes sense, but like that's not something that I don't think that Will had that issue when Fresh Prince first started, because again, the show was called Fresh Prince of Bel Air. His
Yes.
his his
He was being himself. He wasn't
his
playing a
stage
character.
name, there we go. His stage name at the time was Fresh Prince. So there
Yes.
was already the moniker attached to both his rapping and his show. I
Right.
don't think he realized the problem. I didn't, or rather, we didn't. He didn't even have the issue of not being able to detach from characters until he tried method acting, because he had to like be taught how to be Will again.
That's true. Yes, he did.
And then he said like that was his last time method acting.
Yeah, that was not a good idea. Like, he was an untrained actor doing something he should have never done.
It's like I applaud, like it's so weird because like I applaud his work ethic in a way
Incredible
because
work ethic.
he was
Incredible.
like he was like a fish out of water in just about everything that he did in his early 20s, and he went in with the idea and the fake confidence of I'm gonna rock this.
That also comes from youth, though, because when you think about how you were when you were 18, 19, 20,
Oh
you had
yeah, I
this
was invincible.
yeah, you had this unquenchable. So it's like, remember, I remember we talked about this a little bit before while we were reading the book of like how much in his life was like luck,
Yeah.
because he found hip hop when hip hop was a new genre. So there were no rules, there were no parameters. It was completely new, and he just happened to be really good at rhyming and really funny. And he brought that to this art form that wasn't solidified yet. So he got to be one of the people that solidified it.
That has to be like super exciting when you think about it.
Oh,
It's
extremely.
like you were one of the first people to step into this realm.
Also, can we talk about the fact that I had no idea that he won the first hip hop Grammy? I did not know.
You didn't?
No.
I think the only reason I know is because my dad used to be a DJ.
Oh,
So like,
okay.
there's the only reason I know. But like, okay, this is gonna sound terrible. It's not that that song wasn't a bop. It's that song was the most commercial. That's not a word.
Commercial.
That was the most commercial song of the options because all the other ones were basically either F the police or I mean Uncle Luke. Like there was no like clean rap
Do you remember?
outside of outside of Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff.
Do you
And it had
remember?
already been very clear
Yeah,
that I'm just gonna say the white people of the world were already not a fan of rap
they were not.
and did not want rap to spread.
They did not.
So the idea of trying to be inclusive by their terms makes total sense that Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince were the first people to win. I'm not saying that they didn't deserve it because at the same time, they did bring something different to the music at that time. And let's be
They were
real, Jazzy
just
Jeff as a DJ ate it. So
yes.
it's one of those things, but it was just like the way that he kept bragging about it is like, again, I'm happy for you, but like I did want you to acknowledge that you were far more palatable than your counterparts.
I did find it interesting that he never addressed the fact that he was kind of like the more acceptable black person for most of his career. Actually,
Yes.
for all of his career, in his rap career and also in his acting career. Like, he was like the good Negro essentially. And it was very interesting to me because he did talk a little bit in his childhood about being like not black enough for the black kids, but not white enough for the white kids, because he went to a Catholic school and his mom was college educated and insisted that he spoke, correct grammar, and, education was extremely important to her. But then on the other hand, they lived in a black neighborhood. So it was like this weird dichotomy of feeling like you didn't fit in either crowd.
Yeah.
And he discusses how like he didn't curse in his rhymes because Gigi, the
Oh
woman that,
yeah. I'm sorry. I thought that was really cute.
yes,
She
yes,
found his rap book
that was
and
hilarious.
wrote a note to him basically being like, there are better ways to hone your craft, basically.
Yes. And
And I thought
so,
that was just so cute. I was like, Gigi said, no, no, sir, not today.
and
And
like,
then also,
yes.
he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, but there are a couple of songs of Will's that to this day are bops.
Getting jiggy with it. I love that song.
Obviously. Like I have firm memories of watching the Men in Black video and doing the
Yes.
choreography,
Yes.
especially on the Just Bounce with Me. Like literally know
Oh,
that whole
yes.
thing probably still to this day. But again, I think that I I think that Will and Jazzy Jeff did something that the other counterparts of hip hop weren't doing. And he killed it. He knew where his niche was and he stayed there. He didn't try to become somebody else. He said he didn't curse because Gigi didn't want him to curse. And he
Mm-hmm.
kept that vow throughout his whole rap career.
He did. He did. But I find it very interesting. And this is, I guess, where my issue with the book comes in, is that he'll introduce something so interesting, but he won't dig beneath the surface of what he's introducing. Like, he won't go into, anything deeper than the story itself, because I thought that that would have been a great time to talk about, like I said, how he was kind of like that acceptable Negro, but he simply was just being himself. But because he was a more palatable Black person in the industry, and he was so
Oh,
careful about how he curated and orchestrated his image, further feeding into the good Negro stereotype. It
and plus people calling him soft. I really wanted him to go into that.
Yes, and like, he never talked about how all of this was the perfect storm to kind of drive his perfectionism obsession. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because it's like, you wanting the approval of others, does that not also bleed into, like, being more willing to bow down to, like, the system of white supremacy and being like the good one? Like, these were the things I wanted him to talk about,
You
that
wanted
he
him to
didn't.
talk about it, but let's be honest, I don't think he wrote this book from a place of healing, because
Mm,
there's a level of recognition when you are in the process of healing and being healed from things, that you're able to recognize things for what they are.
mm,
But if you're not healed, you don't see it that way. Like what you just described is from the standpoint of somebody recognizing the things that got them where they are. Those type of things, like, oh damn, her internet went out, she'll be back. Like I was saying, I feel like some of the things that we wanted with Will, we weren't going to necessarily get, because I don't think that he's fully healed. I don't think that he's fully processed
yeah,
all of that. So it's like, yeah, we want that, but like, he's not there yet. You
no.
heard how he described these things. He's not there yet.
No, he's not there yet, because
So
he basically just described his success as like, oh yeah, and this happened, and I just happened to meet this guy. He was a great beatboxer, and then I happened to do this, and this just happened to happen, and this happened, and I was like, I want to dig deeper. Like, if, for example, how he talked about going on tour, and the first tour that they went on, and how they were on tour with, like,
all the good
um
ones.
yeah, like all the good old school rap groups. And there was this one group in particular who was literally hanging a dude on stage. Like, they hung a white supremacist on stage every night, and they did not give a fuck if they were in Mississippi, if they were in Georgia. They were doing it regardless, even though the police were like, don't do that. They were like, fuck you.
In
And
the
there was
USA.
Yes, and there was another group that was like, arrest us, please. We want to be arrested. That is the point. And I wanted him to delve deeper, and like, how did that make him feel, that he's surrounded by all these people that are like, they're all in the same category of hip hop, but they're also different. Like, I just wanted more.
Again, I think you're asking for a self-reflection that hasn't happened yet.
Because that part was so frustrating to me, because he's like telling the story. You know what it is? He told the story like he was
Watching it.
a spectator on his life.
Yes.
And I wanted him to tell the story like when old people tell you stories about their lives. And they sit you down and they're like, it was the summer of 1958, and I was a young girl in Mississippi. And you're like, oh my God, I know it's going to be good. Like, that's what I wanted.
You're so ridiculous, but I understand. I understand what you're saying, though. So
And you're just like ready. You're like, oh my God, grandma's going to tell me about how she was out in these streets. Can't wait.
oh my God, because those are usually the stories that grandma tells too. Oh my God.
But instead, we got like through the looking glass, and like, ha ha ha, aren't I so funny and charming? And I made so much money. And I'm just like,
I
that's
I
great.
kind of agree with Kay the Reader. Kay the Reader says, I think Will was just like them, but he wanted to keep a commercial appeal.
Mm,
And okay, so remember, by the time that he's going on tour, this is the part where he had proven to his mom that he didn't need to go to college.
right.
This was also when he was at the beginning of him striving for that dream of perfection.
Yes, yes, this was.
So the only time he changed his route was when it didn't work. So
Mm,
if it was working, There
He
was no
was.
need to dissect it. There was no
That's
need to
true.
question it. He
That's
just
true.
went for it.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's
So,
very results oriented.
yeah.
He's like, it doesn't matter how I got here, but I got here and we're gonna
And
keep
his
doing
results were like, these are the reasons why I should be loved,
it.
kind of thing.
Yes.
I don't know what
Okay.
that's called. I feel like that's probably some like real deep psychology shit, but I don't know what that's called. But it was really sad to hear how it was basically like a puppy who had gone to go play fetch and then like ran like all the way across the field to get the ball and bought it back and then was like looking at you like, okay, now like give me my love.
Yes.
Like that was him most of this book.
Speaking of, I really wanted to talk about his relationship with women, starting with his first love. I can't remember her name now. I feel terrible. I feel like her name started with an M.
Describe like
His
relationship.
his relationship with his first love that he met in high school.
Melanie.
Thank you.
Whoo, child.
That whole situation, I'm still shook. like like
He
once
kept
that
saying,
happened, once
he
that
kept being
happened,
like, it's because we were both immature. Bro, it's because you were abusive. What? What?
and then how he casually is like, I've reached out to Melanie numerous times over the years and she's never responded. And I'm like,
And I
oh
was
yeah.
like, as she shouldn't. What the hell?
Now I will say, obviously, she was in the wrong by cheating on him. She should have just broken
Yes.
up with him, honestly. But he is the one who hunted her down at the mall and was like, I want her back. And like, this is gonna be proof that I'm worthy of love. And she cheated on me because I wasn't good enough. Oh well. Like he went after her to get her back. Then once he got her back, he so
Treated her like crap.
nonchalantly says, "Oh, I haven't forgiven her."
Yeah, it's just, oh. And then it was just like, it was the fact that you felt like you needed to mention that she has not answered your call to this day. And all I kept thinking was, are you mad because you felt like your superstardom was going to be able to erase what you did to her?
Yeah, he was. That's exactly why he was mad.
Because your superstardom has been able to fix so many things, or fix, according to you, so many things. And it's like, bro, that must really hurt because you felt the need to take the time out to mention that she still don't fuck with you.
Yes, he like made it a point to say that. And the whole time I'm thinking, why would she? You treated her
Yeah, I
horribly.
was like, at what point do you feel like you gave her any other choice but to go no contact?
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy.
I was like, you know what? And then if like I had to like literally just be like, you know what? I'm just gonna listen to this man's story without ad-libbing because it's been multiple times already that I'm like, sir,
Yeah, that was crazy.
what are
like,
you doing?
when he said, and honestly, the another part that really spoke to his internalized misogyny was the night that she decided to go out and he's like, are you challenging me in front of my gangster friends?
Woo!
How
Yeah.
dare you challenge me now? Like when, these gangsters around me, like, no, I can't, you can't make me look bad. And then she's just like, and he's like, I promise you it's not a good look. And then he burns all her shit on the lawn when she gets home.
Yeah. I was like, it's just emotion.
And I'm like, if he was bold enough to do that, what else was he doing to her that he's not writing in this book?
Yeah, I was like, oh dear heaven. Like, oh my God, no. No.
Because that's okay. I'm also going to say this, and maybe this is just me, doing the same thing that he does to himself. That was a bitch move when he did that.
No. That was not you making him out to be a coward. Because that whole it literally went 0 to 1,000 so quick.
And the fact, and did you notice that he made it a fact to say every single thing I'd ever bought her?
Yes, because a lot of this book was very ego serving.
How did you go from like wanting to save her from her poverty stricken childhood with like having parents where the mom murders the dad, I believe, and goes to prison, and like
wild.
That was so sad. And the auntie taking her in, but being like this like religious nut Muslim lady. And I say that with all due respect to Islam because I know not all practicing
The aunt
Muslims
was just
behave
very
this
like
way. But
strict. We'll
she
say
was
strict.
she was OD to the max. Like she literally was like those religious Christian women that like feel their daughters shouldn't wear skirts above their ankles or some shit. But she was OD, and he was just like, I'm gonna save her, and I love her, and I'm gonna put her up in my
Because
mansion.
again, this wasn't about her feelings. This was
Never.
about what gave him the perfect picture.
And I'm gonna give her a great life, and she's gonna love me. I was just like, oh,
and I'm gonna prove that I'm worthy of love.
yes, basically.
Woo, man.
Once that he told that story, I just knew why him and Jada's relationship had been so rocky. And then when I knew, and then once he separated from Jada and he was going on his whole like eat, pray, love pilgrimage. Was it not? Was it not?
It was very, yeah, it was.
And then he mentioned how he hadn't been single for more than 15 days in his adult life. I was like, yeah, bro.
Because, okay, so serial monogamers is what I call people like Will.
Yes.
Because I do believe that as a person, you need to, like, I'm not saying date yourself because I kind of hate that saying.
Me too.
But like, you do need to know who you are.
Yes.
If you are always attached to someone else, like, you're not you, you're us, you're we, you're them.
Yep.
So it's like, who are you? And the fact that he was like he was in his 40s and he didn't like being with himself by himself.
He didn't.
I was like, man, my therapist would be like all over this
because remember when he landed in Trinidad and he was like, this is so weird. Like, I've never had to hold my own luggage for like 20 years and maybe said 30. And then he was just like, and you know, I travel with like 10 minimum of 10 people all the time. And that's when I realized this man is codependent. He's never alone.
He is very codependent. And that had to be a very rough realization for him. Because and then remember, his codependency was hidden as successful.
Yep.
And prepared.
Yes.
And it was all of his red flags were hidden because of his success, because he turned all of his codependency, his feeling of unworthiness, his feeling of never being good enough, his feeling of cowardice. Yes. He turned all of that into the well-oiled machine that pushed him to be the greatest movie star of all time.
Yes. Which he made it a point to tell us many.
Which again, shout your accolades to the world. I'm not too mad about that. Shout your accolades. Do you, boo? But it was just like, okay, we get it. Like we've been here. We've literally seen all these movies.
That's why I was irritated, because I was just like, well, we can look you up on Wikipedia and see how much your movies made in the box office. Like, I understand.
We know at one point you were literally the star of every movie. Yes. We also know that your body was the baddest in Bad Boy too. Like, we know.
Yes, we know.
Because that memory made me go back and watch Bad Boys, and I was like, yes. I remember that scene.
Okay. I remember it very well. And I remember like the pull-up scene in I Am Legend, when he's like shirtless and he's doing those pull-ups.
Oh my gosh. No, the shower scene in iRobot again.
Yes.
I like that part was funny to me because he said like that was the first time he had ever been, like, when he snuck into the theater and like heard the I was like, that was the most like honest, one of the most honest scenes of the book, because it was like, I was shocked that like people were like,
those are some of my favorite parts, where he would be like, it's me, I'm right here.
Yeah, like, I'm right here, ma'am. But honestly, like, that just made me laugh, because I was like, I do remember Will going from a to whoa.
Yes. Yes.
Woo! But yeah, it's I needed to relay how we did in every box office and every international. I can let you guys add all that up, sir. We know.
That was really weird when he was
like, it was like, again, it was a lot of ego serving in this book.
That was
because it was like, sir, we watched all of these movies. We know that you were killing it
beyond killing it.
There is no denying that you are one of the biggest movie stars of all time. There's no denying this.
He had the Midas touch for quite some time.
He really did. So it's like, that was really weird that you felt like you needed to give us the numbers. We know we gave you those numbers, bro.
Yup.
You was out here acting.
Okay.
Read Love or Miss WSC Reader, Pursuit of Happiness is the only movie I cried in theaters watching.
Oh, I sobbed
Pursuit of
so hard
Happiness is one
watching
of the
that
many
movie.
Pixar movies. Pursuit of Happiness, 7 pounds from him.
Oh, 7 pounds,
Um,
bro. That was rough.
I was a wreck. I was not okay.
I just
Uh,
didn't see it coming. Like when it started to unfold, what was happening, I was like, no.
yeah, it's no, you saw it coming and still ugly cried. That is a very Pixar
Yes.
thing that he did. But it's like he's evoked all emotions for me. Like he's an incredible actor. But like as a person, he's so incredibly broken.
And you know what it was like when you talk about that part where you're like, we don't need to know all this about your movies, like we were there. I wanted more of what he did when he was talking about the filming of Ali. And I
Oh
I
yeah.
understand why he went into detail because it was Muhammad Ali. It was the first movie he was nominated for an Oscar. It was the movie that turned him into like the perfectionist commander that he became for the next 10 years. I understand why he went into detail, but that's the kind of information I wanted about the other films. Like when he talked about when they went to South Africa and how you had the Mozambique. No, was it Mozambique that they were in?
It
It was
was the
Mozambique.
Oh, that scene. I loved that scene, but woo, there was still a lot of ego serving in that scene.
And how you had the Mozambican crew and then you had the South African
South
crew,
African crew.
and how that one South African crew member had like used the face of a Mozambican crew member to like wipe the toilet seat because he left a few drops, and how this like whole thing erupted and it was real bad. And oh my gosh, one of my favorite characters in the book was Charlie Mack.
Heck yes.
And if you listened to the audiobook on 1.5 speed, everything no, but listen, everything Charlie Mack said was hilarious as fuck because he was like, well, what do I got to do? What I got to do? What I got to do to make you wipe my face with the toilet seat? What do I got to do?
First of all,
So
again,
fast.
I am like that scene for me made me there are a couple of scenes that made me open mouth cackle. But that one is my favorite because he was like it was like, how dare you do something so disrespectful? I dare you to do that to me. And I was like, that's the energy that I appreciate.
I know, but like how Will and Michael, was it Michael Bay that made that movie with him?
I
Who was
forgot. We're just gonna say the director because I forgot his name.
But him and the director, how they were willing to eat that, like, what was it, couple $1,000,000 to
It's the
fire.
fact that they said it was only a couple $1,000,000 that just let me know I was not in the same pay scale. He said, yeah, we ate the cost. It was only a couple million. Come on.
Those are the type of behind the scenes stories I wanted. Like, I didn't want him to tell me, like, oh, I Am Legend, blah, 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 million in the box office. Independence Day.
No.
Like, I wanted those little anecdotes that really make it
I would have
special.
loved to have known what it was like to film a whole movie like by yourself
Me
with a
too.
dog.
Me too.
Because you mentioned it, but like for real though, like how difficult was that? I don't know. Again, it's like, yes, we know those movies were a success. I would have loved to have known some of the things that you struggled with or some of the things that you like fought against. I don't know.
I just loved the little anecdotes in the story. Like, for example, when who was it? Him, Charlie Mack, JL, and Jazzy Jeff were on tour in London, and Jazzy Jeff had broken his leg and he had to get that cast off, and they were trying to take it off with butter knives that had serrated edges. And JL came in the room and was like, because they had Jazzy Jeff in the bathtub and the cast was shrinking because it was like fiber or something.
Yeah,
And
that's
JL
why
was
they
like,
tell you not to
what?
get it wet.
JL was like, what the fuck?
I love him. You and words are stupid as fuck. That was like his like iconic line.
Oh,
But
God.
also like for me, that was just like because everything else has been like a well-oiled machine that like it was
Mm-hmm.
like y'all really did some dumb stuff. Like this scene,
Yes.
the Fresh Prince scene where they called him into the office and was mad that he was like,
Oh my God. And he like almost assaulted that producer.
can we talk about it? Because again, JL grabbed the snow
It was
globe
Charlie Mack. It was
off
Charlie
that
Mack.
man's desk and was ready to rock that man with the snow globe. I was like, again, these are the kind of stories that I need because I
Yes.
feel like this is character development, but also because this happened, like that is the funniest thing because y'all left Jazzy Jeff out of the loop and he
Yes.
apologized.
Yeah, that part was really funny because no, it was Benny Medina that had to apologize because Benny Medina was like, "What the fuck y'all doing?"
No, it was Jazz because remember in the parking lot, Jazzy was like, "What the hell?"
Was it? Oh, I
Yes,
forgot.
because he was like, "You thought the man who just had back surgery was gonna attack you?"
Oh yeah. You're right. Oh my god, that was so funny.
I was just like,
Ooh.
not y'all out here ready to fight the man who just had extensive back surgery. No. But for some reason, what I could not stop laughing about was the fact that that man grabbed a snow globe off that man's desk and was ready to assault him with his own snow globe. I was like, how did we get here? You're supposed to be the calm, cool, collected one, and you and Will exchanged one look and you was ready to get an assault charge.
It just goes to show how much they were in survival mode from their upbringing.
Yeah,
Like,
I was
and
like, woo.
because he didn't get triggered until the guy started walking behind him. Because remember, Will's sitting there and the
Yeah.
guy starts walking behind him, and Will's like, "Oh my god, what is he about to do? If he's about to do something, I'm about to do something." Like, what the fuck?
It's like
Whew.
I understand their response, but like it was like the most unprofessional
Oh,
response. But
extremely.
like they were like young and in the game and didn't really know the game yet. So it was a perfect reminder of like
Yes.
how unseasoned they really were at the time because that mess was so funny to me.
Can we also talk about his unofficial apology to Janet Hubert, the first Aunt Viv?
The only reason why I'm accepting it is because he did that whole special on HBO
Yes.
where he apologized. That's the only reason why I'm accepting this because woo, that
because he literally had just one line about when they replaced Aunt Viv. He was like, in all honesty, like the show did go downhill. Like after that, he was like, yeah, shouldn't have done that. It was just like one line, and I was like, finally, you admitted it because we all see it. Like once, I just remember being a kid.
she said it.
I remember being a kid and having the new like season of Fresh Prince come on and Aunt Viv come out, and you're like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah, I think all of us genuinely were like, excuse me.
And then you just never cared about that character after that.
Nope. They tried to give her a baby and everything. We did not care.
Damn.
I'm sorry.
I'm dead. I'm sorry. Because you're so right. We were like, nobody gives a fuck about this lady.
It did. Like they started going for like saving graces and like trying to like pull it back together, but
oof.
It's like another thing that I actually kind of enjoyed about this book is that I was reliving some of the joyous moments because like I got to experience some of his moments that he was talking about, like how like he would be like freaking out opening day. Meanwhile, we were in the theater opening day.
Yes, freaking out
Watching
as well.
So it was very interesting to hear that from the other standpoint.
If you think about it, the younger generation will never know that joy.
Yeah.
Because now, like, I don't really see him going back to big budget movies.
I don't either.
And, I see him doing Netflix movies. He's getting older. Like, he's just not in his heyday like he was.
I think because he's also, I mean, if he is doing all this work on himself, I don't think he has time to do that kind of stuff anyway.
No.
But I mean, I heard that didn't he just do a movie?
I believe he's doing another Bad Boys movie, right?
I don't know. I don't keep track of nobody until a movie is coming out. Like I just realized Black Adam is coming out next week. So
oh shit.
Exactly. So I don't keep track of them anymore. But I think this is going to be weird to say, but one, him and Jada made so much money, they don't really need to do anything else.
No.
Two, he makes so much money off of YouTube and endorsements.
Yes.
Even after the slap, people are still giving him endorsements and things.
They are.
Two, yeah, he's not as big as he was because, if you're going to be the token Negro, you are not allowed to step out of line. Yep. So somebody else will be taking the mantle from him.
Michael B. Jordan.
Oh.
I mean, they've already set him up.
Yeah, I also feel like he has, like Miss WSC Reader, him and Jada have many behind the scenes things in Hollywood.
Many
things. So I think he's fine. It's like, I know this is so bad. After reading the book and seeing the slap in 4K, I'm glad it happened.
He needed to break that perfectionism.
I know he didn't want to break it and that forced it, but like, I'm kind of glad it happened because it's going to be like, so what are you going to do now?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to present yourself now?
Yep.
Because you have a
And
totally new opportunity here. You
and
have a
maybe
restart that other people do not get.
absolutely. And maybe it's finally time to be authentic.
Yeah, maybe it's time to get Willard.
Yup.
I keep saying that because like his name is so funny to me.
His name is hilarious because I did not know that that was his full name for
I
many,
thought it
many
was
years.
William my whole life until
Yeah.
I started reading this book and it is Willard. I was like, so you was out here letting people call you William this whole time?
I mean, probably because the real name is Willard.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, all right.
Well,
Okay.
alrighty then.
It's like, well, I'm cool, you cool.
I know. Okay, can we talk about the ending of this book and how much I disliked it?
Woo! Okay.
I I just
So which parts of the ending did you not like?
I just didn't like the fact that it ended with him like bungee jumping. And him being like, I'm going to the other side of fear now, and everyone's here to support me. And this is my grand opus. And I was just like, well, I
Do
watched
you
that YouTube.
know
I
do
saw
you
that
know how
YouTube
the
video.
ending felt to me?
How did it feel?
Like nothing ever changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fact that he was literally filming that for YouTube. I saw that YouTube video, by the way.
Yep.
The fact that he also ended the book with a song.
To be
That rubbed
fair,
me the wrong way too. I was like,
I blame this on loving Mariah Carey's audiobook.
oh my god, it was so good.
Outside of just the two of us and getting jiggy with it, I felt like all the other song placements, well, actually, no, all the songs that were part of his rap career, part of the story, made sense.
They did.
The last one was that freestyle that he released a couple years ago. I actually love that freestyle. It just did not fit where he put it. Like if he had put that freestyle back when him and Jada decided that they were still going to stay together, because in
Yes,
that freestyle, he basically tells everybody to mind their business.
he does.
So that would have been a perfect place to put it. But the place where he put it made no sense. I also feel like he could have ended the book on I too didn't like that it ended on YouTube. I guess that's
Yeah,
the best way to put it.
I just didn't like it. I was like, oh my god, Will, are you serious? You are ending your book with a sponsored video you made for YouTube, and you're trying to convince me that somehow it's you digging to the other side of fear? Anybody would be scared bungee jumping. What the fuck? Like, I was just so
Yeah, it was just
irritated.
kind of like, I watched this on YouTube. Yes,
Ye-
I see you facing your fears, but your fear was water, not the
yes.
Grand Canyon.
Yes.
So why was this the correlation? Because the real video is the video the first time that he like got into the ocean on YouTube. That was the
Yes.
real fear video. So we were gonna end it on that one. End it
Yep.
on you really facing your fears and not doing a stunt for YouTube.
Yeah, that
Because
was
that was a
annoying.
live event on YouTube.
That irritated me like so much, and I was kind of checked out by that point. That was like the last 10 minutes of the audiobook, and I completely checked out because it was like he did that and then he had the song, and I was like done. I was
Right.
like, oh my god, why? So I want him to come out with another book in about 8 years called Willard. Will, if you're listening, we love you, but you know, come out with another
Again,
one.
it doesn't make me dislike them. I find reading books about celebrities like this, like giving me the opportunity to like add opinions that nobody asked for. I find it very interesting that my opinions are always so like connected to random things about their life that the media showed me. I
Yes.
find that so interesting because it's like my opinions about Will don't really change much because
No.
like he has no connection to my life at all.
None. I mean, we don't
It's
know
like
this man. We do not know
after
this
this
man.
discussion, I will never talk about Will Smith ever again, probably.
I'm dead. Yes, you will.
You know what I mean, though? It's
I
like we're
do.
not gonna be dissecting him.
No,
It's
we're
not
not.
gonna be like, oh look, Will ego tripping.
Yeah, we don't care.
We not yeah, it's just like I'm not gonna no. It's like this book for me was enjoyable. I am still going to continue to try to read more what's it called? More autobiographies because they take me a while to read. So like that'll be like a slow process.
You can't binge them. That's the thing.
Yeah. So
They're
like I
not
take them
bingeable.
one at a time.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. But yeah, I feel like I don't know. This has been a very interesting reading year.
It has. Very interesting.
So with that being said, that's the end of our discussion for Will. So we want to leave you guys with a couple of announcements. Also, read, love, listen. I'm going to be real honest. I have zero intentions of reading Tamara Mowry's book.
Oh, I'm going to listen to it.
I know you're going to, but I'm not. I'm going to get the Cliff Notes from Oshale.
I'm very curious because she's another one that's a great pretender. So
yeah.
I need to know.
So, as you guys know, the fourth quarter is planner season for me. By the way, if you don't know, the Melanin Eclectic Reading Planner 2023, the Melanin Zodiacs, will be starting the pre-order tomorrow. You have like a week and a half, so take your time. The information video is on Plan with Melanin YouTube channel if you're interested, or you can check out Shop Melanin Eclectic on Instagram to see all of the artwork that I worked my ass off on. Next, for fourth quarter for Black Prose Club, you know, we always kind of wind down the year in November.
Mm-hmm.
And so for November, we were actually going to be reading comic book, or graphic novel comic book. We're going to be reading the Naomi series.
Very exciting.
Which I'm excited about. It's co-written by Brian Michael Bendis and David F. Walker, and it's illustrated by Jamal Campbell. This will be the end of our Black male author illustrator year, which is so crazy.
It's kind of weird
that it's
already over. So weird.
If you want to join us for that, I'm sure you can check it out at the library. I don't know if it's on any of like Hoopla or iCloud because I bought the comic, but we are going to be discussing that in November this year, and that'll be like our last thing before we go on our month hiatus before January. I'm excited about this series. Let me pull up the premise. Sorry, I knew I forgot something. 1 second. You can talk now while I look it up.
Yes. I'm very excited about Tamara's book.
Good luck with that. I have no interest.
I know. She's not your favorite sister.
It's not that she's not my favorite. It's just that I don't feel like her story is that interesting to me.
I think her story...
Sister, where do I remember her from?
Well, The Real and like, you know, her private life.
I didn't like her on The Real. So...
You didn't like her on The Real?
I did not.
Oh, wow. Okay, yes. She's not for you.
Not at all. But I mean,
I liked her on The Real.
I respect everybody else.
I didn't, you know, necessarily agree with everything, all of her opinions, but I think she brought something to the show. A kind of softness and more traditional values that was like an interesting contrast and balance to the other ladies.
There are a couple of bigoted values too, but yes.
Bigoted? Oh my God, what did she say? I missed those.
We'll talk about that on like after.
Oh Lord, okay.
Hold on.
No, Tamara, not
my phone is doing really weird things, so I'm trying to pull it up. There we go. Okay, phone, don't do that. Okay. Naomi, season 1. The premise of this story is a local teenager named Naomi starts looking into what happened the last time a super being visited her hometown and how that visit might tie into her own origins as an adopted child. But Naomi's seemingly harmless curiosity exposes more than just her family's startling secrets. It attracts the attention of forces that could threaten Earth itself. Learning the truth about her heritage will turn Naomi's life upside down. Can she learn to control her uncanny abilities and come to terms with her strange new place in the world before it's too late? Yep.
Dun, dun, dun. I'm so excited. It's just time to read something short and fun and adventuresome with photos or illustrations. Photos is the wrong word. Illustrations and graphics, and I can't wait.
Yeah. Also, no, Miss WOC Reader, I did not watch the CW series because I don't have cable.
Yeah, I don't have CW streaming. Like, it doesn't have like a streaming thing that I
Do they have a
have. So
streaming
I'm
service?
sure they do something. I know. You know what it is? They have like an online thing where you can go and watch like unlocked episodes of certain shows. I remember
Oh.
because I used to be obsessed with the CW when I was in high school and college, and that's how I would watch some shows.
Oh, that was back during like American Teenager and Pretty Little Liar days, right?
Yes. They had this
Okay.
one show called Hit the Floor that I was obsessed with.
Why does that sound familiar?
Because it had that girl, Taylor Page, who dated Jesse Williams for a very brief period of time.
And what was Hit the Floor about? Cheerleaders?
Yes, it was about this cheerleading squad and this basketball team and all this drama.
Hmm.
I was so mad when that show got canceled. I loved that show. I loved that show. I was also a really big fan of Gossip Girl.
Oh, yeah.
That was my show.
Yeah.
Chuck Bass was my man in my head. You know, that toxic masculinity. Gotta love it. I was like, I love Chuck Bass.
I was like, you and this toxic bae thing one day.
See, I only like it in fiction, not in real life. But
That's fair.
he was wonderful. I loved his character.
I love it. Do you have any announcements for today?
I do not.
All right. Well, it looks like Black Prose Club is gonna see you guys in November.
Yes.
Don't forget to check out Black Prose Book Club on Instagram. We're obviously gonna post a new schedule for November, but that is kind of the rest of Black Prose for this month, unless something random happens and we have to do like a impromptu live.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be doing planner stuff. I'll just be honest.
Yeah, we have other things that we need to hustle on for this month for ourselves personally. I'm going to be doing deep in NaNoWriMo next month, and I'm about to start planning. So the end of the year is always busy for us. Black Friday is coming up for Brittany. So
Oh yeah, I'm trying not to think about that. It's making my chest hurt.
we will be releasing the schedule for next month, and we'll also be releasing links and things like that where you can support Brittany's shop as we're winding down.
On that note, y'all have a good day. Stay black, stay blessed, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye. Remember, where there's a will, there's a way.
Goodbye.